What does it mean to live life as more than a survivor?
Unpacking that question is what we're all about.
On this podcast, we speak about life, its ups and downs, and everything in between.
Join us as we connect with others and discover more through stories and conversations.
Come as you are.
Recovering,
Healing.
growing.
I'm John Westhaver.
And I'm Michelle Escamilla. And this is More Than a Survivor podcast. Hey everyone, thank you for joining us again on another episode of More Than a Survivor podcast. John, good to see you. How are you doing?
I am doing great. I'm doing a virtual tour this week in Saskatchewan from here in Victoria, so I'm having lots of fun doing that. So yeah, things are good. Things are awesome. What's nice about it is I get to have it all. I get to be here with my kids and be working at the same time remotely, so it's awesome.
So for folks who are joining us maybe for the first time, hi and welcome. This is More Than a Survivor podcast. John, you were saying about this funky place, for some people that might consider it funky, calling it Saskatchewan, who maybe have never heard of this. So let's give the folks some context. Where are you located and where is Saskatchewan?
Michelle, you are the absolute perfect person to co-host this podcast with me, because sometimes you bring out you're like, wait a second, John, before you go there, let's step back and kind of talk about things. So Saskatchewan, yes, Saskatchewan is a massively large province in the country of Canada. And I have been speaking there remotely with SAD Saskatchewan and SGI, which is the Saskatchewan Government Insurance. So I've been doing remote presentations from Victoria. I've done 5 already. I do 1 more tomorrow. So we're doing a virtual tour of 6 schools. And I get to really go to small communities and deliver my road safety presentation and talk to the students about road safety and making a difference and being safer drivers. So I really love it because I can do this virtually from anywhere from the studio. I finished doing a presentation like an hour ago. Now I'm recording a podcast, and it's all without leaving my house. And I love it. I'm not a introvert, but I like going out with people. But I like having this space where I can kind of do all of it.
Yeah, it's definitely something that the pandemic has left us with, is this idea of working from home or being hybrid. So that is really neat. And I think to give people context, like you said, that's in Saskatchewan is in Canada. And John, you are in British Columbia. You're on the West Coast, right? And
Yeah.
I used to live in Canada and now I'm in Los Angeles. So we have 2 different perspectives. We've got 2 different experiences, and we've got a whole lot that we always want to share with you. So thank you everyone for tuning in. And I'm excited for this week. It's going to be a good one.
Yes, it is going to be a good one. It is going to be, well, it's awesome because look, we are both amazing people with awesome stories to tell and lots to share. So of course it's going to be good. It's going to be an awesome episode. And I really just, myself and you, I really want to thank those people that are listening, taking the time to choose this podcast. You have a plethora of podcasts to choose from, countless hours, and you chose to listen to us. So really, just from the bottom of my heart, Michelle, I'm assuming you're the same. We thank you for listening to us today and being on this journey with us. And we are not paid actors or people. We're doing this because we're passionate about having these conversations.
Definitely. And I think that's what this podcast is all about. We really want to talk about the ups and the downs of life and everything in between, and unpacking what it means to think about this idea of living life as more than just a survivor. So I'm going to get into it then, if you're ready.
I'm ready.
Sweet. So you and I were kind of talking back and forth about how we should talk about this because we're both people that are passionate, who have this passion to share with other people about our stories and encouraging them. As you were saying, you were just explaining how you talk about road safety, and I think something I'm really passionate about talking and sharing with people is about self-love and confidence, compassion, and all of these things that sometimes can be kind of complex to think about, but it's really crucial to our wellness and well-being. So, having said that, the thing that I feel like you and I kind of came down to was saying, what is it like? What is it like when those things that brought you pain now also bring you joy? Let me say that again.
Yep.
What is it like, or let's unpack when things that brought you pain now also bring you joy? John, what are your first thoughts on that?
My first thought, you know what my first thoughts are? My first thoughts are I am so privileged, so thankful that I have been treated in Canada. Our medical
Mm,
system in Canada, has been amazing. It's not just the physical surgeries, but it's also the mental health aspect of it. Like, really that, from the education system to the health system to the society that we live in. You know, when we look at the passionate side of things, like this is possible because of the healing journey, and that I have gone through that healing journey, and I've had the resources to heal. And
mm,
what I mean by that is, like, when I heal, and I then can share from that healing, and I use that, as passion to make a difference. Like, I use my experiences to make a difference with other people, whether it be road safety, whether it be peer support group for other burn survivors, whether it's just having a conversation with a family member who's going through something difficult. It's our healing element, because we've been able to heal, that allows us to really be of service and support other people, and kind of use it for the passion. That's what comes to mind for me. What about you?
yeah, definitely. I think, well, to go off of what you just said, I completely agree. So, my story is that I was treated in the US, here in the States. And even though I grew up in Canada and all that, the story just kind of happened that way. And you're right. I think that we're very fortunate to have had been treated in the places that we were and to have been surrounded by the friends and the community that we were. I mean, I can think about people in my life and that I've met throughout, this journey that have had different stories and definitely have had um, a different trajectory in terms of how they recovered, what that recovery looked like, versus let's say someone who has the same type of injury but recovers within a year compared to someone who has had the same injury, same amount of time, but really just isn't in that same place as the other person was. So um, yeah, actually, now that you say that, I am very grateful as well that that has been my case.
Yeah, it's one of the elements when I look at it. Like, it when I look at me being able to offer support, when I'm working with burn survivors, I think our health system, is a success. Because we're able to go through the healing journey and heal from what ails us, and go into that space of helping other people. And I just am so thankful that I get to live in Canada, and that I've been treated in Canada. Yeah, so I feel privileged.
And also, I think, I used to work with an organization that would bring folks from different countries who perhaps didn't have the same type of treatment. So if that is you and you're listening or you're watching this, there are organizations that you can reach out to and just see how they can support you, whether it's social, emotional support and bringing you community, or if there are organizations who are able to see what resources there are out there. I mean, it is possible. And it's I don't want to say that we don't want to base all of the experiences just on our two experiences, because as you said, we were fortunate in that case. And so there are these resources and we encourage you to check them out. Feel free also to email us or contact us, and we'd be happy to direct you in the right way. Two places that come to mind for me in terms of burn care here in the US is the Phoenix Society. They've got tons of great resources. And then in terms of Canada, I think about the Canadian Burn Survivor community, which is also really great. Got loads of resources. So I would start there, but we're always here to help.
Yeah. And what's great is if you're listening to us, okay, it means you're listening to us on a podcast or you're watching us on YouTube. If you're listening to us, that means you're connected to the internet, which is great because there's a lot of, like she said, a lot of online resources. Check out the Canadian Burn Survivor community and also the Phoenix Society. The Phoenix Society has a lot of great online resources. So you can tap into those. Those are completely free resources that you can tap into. You be your own advocate for your health, your healthy journey, and what it means. And something I was going to say as well about the healing element of it. Oftentimes we get lost in this thought of like healing means getting like have it like healing so that it never bothers us again. That's not what I mean. Healing, what I mean by healing is healing from the whatever ails me in the past to where I can actually function in society. Because no amount of surgeries will ever take away my scars. I'm healed in the sense of like there's no more open wounds, you know, but I still have surgery, scarring and disfigurement from the burns. That'll always be there. So being able to function in society without those injuries or mental health um, uh, those traumas, the mental traumas, taking you out of life. That's what I mean by healing.
Hmm. I feel like we could talk about resources this entire episode.
I know, I
I'm,
know.
I'm thinking about, other speakers and podcasts. I'm thinking about listen, if you want to hear more about that, let us know. We can totally do an episode on all of the ways that you can get connected or the resources that we know. And if you know some, feel free to share them too. So
Wait a second. Didn't we just
I'll,
record an episode before about resources?
we did talk about some resources. We did. Yeah.
It's a big topic, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So if you want to hear more about that, let us know. But John, what I think that's really hard. Coming back to like this main idea, when the things that brought you pain also now bring you joy, I think that's really complex. It feels complicated. It feels a little sticky and messy. Because I think if you're in the thick of it in terms of any sort of challenge, it's really hard to say that, oh, like what's really challenging now is going to later bring me joy. Like it feels almost disingenuine or like hard to really wrap your head around. But perhaps, now having kind of come through a piece of like the hardest part of my recovery, I feel like I'm able to now say that. But I do want to state and recognize that that's a really hard statement to say.
Yeah, yeah, it is. It definitely is. I completely
So
agree.
okay, so I'm going to break this down a little bit here. So the thing that has been painful and the thing that now brings joy, they're these two like juxtapositions that kind of work in harmony once they've figured out their dynamic. But for those of you who perhaps this is your first time joining, as a child I was in a car accident and my whole body was impacted with third-degree burns. I was in the hospital for about 4 months. My whole family was impacted. We all survived, and it was really hard. It was really hard. As a child, you're still trying to figure out who you are. You're trying to be, likable. You want your friends to like you. You want to be part of society. And now you look different. And now you have to reshape what that means. So during that time, figuring out that pain, now as an adult, I'm able to share the freedom about who I am and feel confident in who I am. It was not a straight line between A and B is what I'm trying to say. And I think that's something that we're going to unpack today.
Yeah, I agree. It's looking back, it's not a straight line at all. It's like, when I was first going through the initial trauma of the burns, like, had you told me that I would be a motivational speaker talking to students around the world and across Canada and have a family, and I would have said you're full of crap.
Mm, mm,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. But I was thinking about it as well. just kind of going back to the passion piece. I don't know about you, but I was that kid before, even before my trauma. I was that kid that always wanted to help out. And I was talking to somebody
Mm,
before, and I was like that. I was always that one that wanted to help out, wanted to make a difference, and I was always doing different things to the community, and always, giving back and making a difference, and helping people out. How about you? Was when you were younger, before the trauma, was that the same for you?
it's funny that you say that because growing up, my friends would call me their, as a kid, mind you, my friends would call me their unofficial therapist. So, what does that tell you?
Well, like
I definitely
yeah, what I mean by that, well, the reason I bring that up is, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I'll let you say, and then I'll kind of go back to what I was saying.
go ahead, go ahead.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because the where we get the passion is from helping other people, and that was
Yeah,
there before the trauma. So when
yeah.
you're healing, when you really heal, you can allow that passion from before to arise.
Mm. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And as I'm kind of unpacking this with you right now, I think it's important for us to kind of, for me, it would be helpful to kind of start going backwards. So, what I mean by that is, John, I know you kind of mentioned it at the beginning, but what is it that you're passionate about? Like, how would you describe that?
So I'm passionate about making a difference and helping other people out. Whether it be road safety, whether it be overcoming adversity, whether it be, creating an extraordinary life or creating some goals and whatever you want to do. Like right now I'm doing a virtual road safety tour, but I'm also creating a program for schools to go into schools and talk on different topics for students, because I know that the school system, they're great curriculum, but there's some things that just aren't in the curriculum. And so I'm creating this
Mm,
program to kind of fit in the curriculum because I'm so committed to making a difference. Because I
mm,
get value out of making a difference for other people. I could care less how much money I have. As long as I have enough money to pay for my essentials and things like that there, and it'd be nice to have a little bit of money to go on vacation, things like that there, but it's not important. What's important is making the difference in the world, like leaving this place a better place than I arrived, into. And so really that's what gives me passion, what fuels me is that making a difference for other people, and it can show up in different ways. Giving
yeah.
somebody a ride somewhere, so whatever. But in my working field, it's creating presentations that talk to students about road safety, sharing the dark days, what I went through because of the crash and the choice that I made to help those students be safer drivers. And then working with other burn survivors, I run the excuse me. I run the support group for burn survivors in Victoria and Vancouver Island. I'm right now we're redoing our peer support group program because I want to make a difference for them. I know what they're going through, and I want to help them.
Mm,
Even though it's not my journey, over there for that. That's not my journey over there. But I know some of the things that they're going through, and I can speak from my experience, and I know what to listen for. And so if I can make a difference over there with them to help them, in their journey, that brings me passion. It makes me feel good. That's what fuels me per se,
mm.
ignites my
No,
fire.
totally. I can feel it. I can hear it in your voice too. So,
I'm so lit
and
up.
that's a
I'm so
beautiful
in love with
thing.
this new studio space that I'm creating. This virtual thing. I'm just getting used to, because I think it's because I can use my hands. I'm like flailing all over here.
If there's
A lot
something
of
you want to
energy
see
too.
in John's space, let him know. I love everything you just said, and I think for me, what I'm passionate about is belonging. I I think that when people have a sense of belonging, that's where oftentimes confidence is birthed from, or that's part of confidence, that's part of acceptance, it's part of self-love when you feel like you belong to something perhaps greater than yourself, perhaps, community based, but for me, that's something that I'm always very conscious of and try to keep in mind as I talk to people, whether they are burn survivors or have suffered a different type of trauma, or just folks who, are going through challenges. Oftentimes in society, we try to battle things alone or believe that we can do it on our own, or this mentality of just, pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. And I think that can be a really lonely path. And by connecting with others and just developing that sense of community and belonging, your journey doesn't have to be as lonely. And there's power in that.
I'm just listening to your share, and I'm just like in my mind. I'm I love hearing how it is for other people and what they take away and stuff like that there, and what I hear is the sense of, you belonging. But I say, for me, I'm always asking, okay, what's behind belonging? Like so what's behind belonging? Well, inclusion. What's behind inclusion? You know, it's being part of something, but it's also like being like seeing us that there's nothing wrong over here. That
Mm,
I don't have to
mm.
put up a wall between us. Like that, like I can let go of all that having to fit in and all this and just be. So it's really cool that you
Yeah. And
share that.
what's interesting too is that as I was thinking about this topic, I also thought that you're saying about relating to people. I think growing up, that was something that subconsciously I was kind of afraid of, was being unrelatable. Like who else has to wear pressure garments? Who else has to who else has surgeries or wears a plastic face mask? Like these are things that growing up, I think I was afraid of, was being unrelatable with my story. Like how many other of my friends have gone to the hospital and lived there for 4 months? I don't think I can think of anyone in my, at my school or things like that. So at the time, that brought me a lot of discomfort, that I was unrelatable. And maybe
Oh,
you're listening today and, that's how you're feeling. And it's important to recognize that that can be part of your process and still through that find joy through that pain.
I love that you said that. And I have a question because it comes up because
Yeah.
so the unrelated part. So inside of that experience, did you at times diminish your experience so that it wasn't this grandiose, this big thing, so that it wasn't like woe is me sort of thing?
Gosh, you say it like that, and I could tell you about times that I've experienced things like that. You and I have talked before in an episode about being someone who has had amputations. So I think about, being at band. I think about being at school and wanting to use a certain utensil, whether it's an art utensil or anything like that, that perhaps was harder for me. And I remember thinking, like, I can do it. I'm fine, and just trying to figure it out on my own because of that reason, because I wanted to be relatable. Because even though that had happened to me, I still wanted to feel normal. I still wanted to believe that I could do these things. And perhaps at the time, I didn't really understand that that was the mentality. Because as a young kid, I was like, I'm a survivor, but I'm also a kid who's, 11 years old or 15 years old. I'm a teenager, 15 years old, and I can still do these cool things. So after so much of telling myself that, like I'm just like everybody else, I think that's where that kind of propelled this thinking of, yeah, I'm a survivor, but you know what? I'm also someone who's really talented and who's got all these skills and did not let these things limit her. So when I think back to that time, subconsciously, I was probably afraid of being unrelatable or that my friends would push me aside because I wasn't like them. But in that desire to believe that I could do all these things, that is my inner voice now, that I can do these things. I choose to trust that voice that tells me that, above the doubt that I might feel of like, oh, but it might be more challenging for you or whatever the case may be.
I love it. I love it. It's so powerful. Thank you for
Yeah.
sharing
What
that.
about you, John? You probably never had any experiences like that.
So for me, it's a bit different.
That was
What is
sarcasm. In case
yeah.
anyone was listening and they didn't hear that, that was sarcasm.
For me was I want to say it was different. Like everybody knew what happened to me. It was a big car crash, so I was always in the public eye, and so I was always out there and doing things, and I didn't feel the need to shy away from it or be different. I used it as a bit of ego boost because like, oh, here's everybody you knew me, even though I was dealing with stuff like how I was dealing with stuff probably wasn't the right way of doing it, but I was a bit of an ego, a bit of an a-hole sometimes, at times, and a bit arrogant, and I had this sense of invincibility, and
Mm.
nothing could go wrong, sort of thing. Even though I was dealing with all these things in the background, I used it for. I felt like a celebrity, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. Like I lived in a small
Mm.
town, and I felt like a celebrity because everybody knew who I was, and I survived. And I had a lot of support from my community. Like I had a ton of support, and I'm glad that I did because that support has provided me the resources to be the person I am today. That has me live the life I have today. And so yeah, it's always interesting when you hear different people's experiences.
Yeah, no, yes, everyone lives their own experience. And I think in what I was saying about feeling unrelatable, the really interesting thing that I learned as an adult, John,
Yeah,
is that people, we all have some sort of scar. And that's something that I came to realize as an adult is that some of us carry it externally and a whole lot of us also carry them internally. And even though they might not have a burn scar, there are ways in the way that there are people that I know that talk to themselves and struggle because of how they physically look. There are people who also struggle with many other things, and it is a challenge for them in the day to day. So, what I've come to realize is that we do carry scars, whether externally or internally. And I think that has helped me to realize that, just because they didn't go through a burn injury does not mean that it's not relatable. Does not mean that we all go through challenges or that we feel lonely or frustrated or afraid or self conscious. Like these are real things, And so it's something that we walk through together, and how much more beautiful would it be if we could have a community where we feel safe to share these thoughts and uplift one another.
yeah, I agree. I completely agree with that, and you bring up a good point. The scarring, the internal scarring, is like in the comparison. Like, you know, it's easy to say, yeah, but I'm not burnt, so your experiences are way different than I am, or my
Yeah,
experiences are. And it's like, no, 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 hold on. Your experiences are your experiences. Your trauma is your trauma. Your wounds are your wounds. Your scars are your scars. Like
it's
you stop
valid.
comparing. Yeah, it's valid, completely valid. And I used to have these people come up to me and say, well, I don't know if I would ever get through it the way that you did. I wouldn't know if I'd be as
Mm,
strong as you were. And I say to them, I said, you have no idea. You haven't been faced with that challenge.
mm,
You know, so you don't know
yeah.
what you would have done in this situation. So I always try to give people like, hey, you have no idea. Like, you have the potential to be as strong as you need to be.
Yeah, definitely. I think that is the ultimate like weakness. I'm trying to think of the best word to describe, but the ultimate thing to really get you down is playing the game of comparison. I mean, there's a saying that says comparison is the thief of joy. Really, that is the truth. Is when you start, especially when you compare yourself to people who are, excelling and doing so much great things, and you try to put yourself and say, "Well, I'm not doing that," or "They're doing this." Friends, let me stop you right there and say we are never going to win the comparison game. So why even play the game? I will note that we all do it. I do it. Sometimes I see something in the grocery store and I'm like, oh, like maybe I should, if I bought this or this and that, go to the store. Same thing. We all do it. But there truly is no reward or good benefit from playing the comparison game. And so, very much to what you're saying, John, what people go through is so valid, and it's important to try not to get into that really dark circle.
I love what you're saying, and I'm gonna add to it. Can I add to it a little bit? Because there comparison is a slippery slope.
For sure.
I feel and think there are benefits to comparison when you're looking to grow. When you're looking to grow
Hmm.
yourself as a person in an area, you know, there it is good to look at comparison. Look at comparison of where you want to be to where you've been, where you're at now. Like, what do you need to do to put into that, to yourself and situation to grow to where you need to be. But when we look at comparison, where the downfall is when we say I'm not as good as them.
Hmm.
That's not really comparison. That's like judgment. You're judging
Yeah.
yourself. And it's like if we let go of the judgment, all the conversation, the therefore lack of, I'm lacking because I'm not as good as them. Let go of that.
Hmm.
Let go of all that noise. Let go of all that comparison. It doesn't serve you. And we live in a very superficial world. We got to look a certain way. Hell, I got gel in my hair. I ain't wearing a dress shirt. I'm in my house. Nobody's. You guys see on YouTube. But like we live in a very super. I got Oakley's on. We live in a very superficial world. I get it.
Yeah.
Don't let it get you down though. Don't let it get you down. And be at the source of the comparison. Why ask yourself, why am I comparing myself to this person over there? Or why am I comparing myself to, where I want to go versus where I'm at? Like why do you want to be there? What is it serving you to go there? Like how does that serve you to be there? And ask these questions that kind of ground you and like, okay, so why am I being so hard on myself? You know? The first of the year, like I didn't have a lot of bookings in my calendar for my work, and I was like, oh, I was making myself so wrong. And I started putting in the work. I knew what to do, and I'm smart. I'm a smart guy. I knew what to do. I knew I'd pick up the phone call, make some emails, like do some work, take some actions on my business, and then things would shift. And they did. I was awarded a contract to go speak in Saskatchewan this week, and they wanted me to fly out there, and I created the opportunity. Let's do it virtually. Let's do it
Hmm.
virtually, and I'll add some more. I'll add another gig to your roster. You get to be the hero because you now get to deliver 6 talks instead of 5. And it makes a big difference. And I'll bring my A game. And so it's like when I look back, like I can sit there and wallow and compare myself. I'm not good enough, versus I'm not where I want to be, and I'm committed to going there. So what needs to happen in reality in the moment to get there?
And
And that's where comparison comes in good. If you're looking to
I,
grow.
I was just going to say, I think for those who are listening and watching, John, what I'm hearing you say, kind of on a more practical level, is to really try to practice kindness when you feel like you're starting to judge yourself. What you're talking about judgment is rooted in shame. It's to make you feel bad, right? That sense of judgment. And so I agree. I think there is a place that can be healthy to allow yourself to grow. And because we're human, and I will say that I've done this too, is we play this comparison game. And the way to, remind ourselves of the intention of why we're trying to grow, like whenever we start to be mean or say these like hurtful or judgmental or shameful things that bring shame, it's to be kinder. It's to be kinder to ourselves. And like you said, to explore, well, why is it that this, like, why am I thinking this? Or where is this coming from? Instead of coming at this inner dialogue or voice that says like, oh, well, you should have done this or you should be like that by now, which can be really harsh too.
Yeah, and it can be, you know, it. What's crazy about it is it keeps you stuck where you're at. It doesn't
Mm.
really allow you to heal when you're in that comparison game and completely rooted in shame. And then when you look at who wins when shame is involved, who wins? You know?
Yeah,
Oh,
totally.
love it. And you know what's so awesome is we're talking about passion today, and this is passion for us. This is passion, like making the difference, having these conversations that really, you know, uh, go beyond that. The survivor conversation. whatever you're dealing with inside of this conversation. Maybe you've just been let go of a position, a career you've had for 25 years, and you're now faced with a blank slate, and you're like, all you've known is, I am CEO of X company. I am widget maker 25 of X company. And now it's no longer there. And your whole identity has been wrapped around, this is who you are. Now
Mm,
what?
mm, mm. Yeah.
It's not
I'm
just
left
about
thinking
being a
about what you're
survivor.
saying.
Yeah, it's not just
Yeah.
about being a
Yes,
survivor. This is
exactly.
for anybody out there. When we share, and we share about our journeys and our life and our learnings, like it, 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 it just allows you, the listener, to bring in the pieces of your life. Like, bring in the stuff that's relatable. Like, this is your experience. As you're listening to this is your life, your experience. You're listening to it. Take away what you need to. Learn what you can. Be inspired by what you're inspired by. And get the
Mm,
support you need and create what you want to create. And let go of this lacking conversation that limits you. Because what's so great, and I tell people all the time, the future, and people will probably argue with the time continuum, people will argue with me, but the future hasn't happened yet. It's a blank slate. So create the future you want to have happen, and then take actions that are consistent with that future happening. And you'll be closer to that future happening. And when you're
mm,
there and
mm.
that future has happened, come back and thank us.
We're here. You can always find us. John, I want to ask you a follow-up question. So we've talked about what we're passionate about. We're really passionate about, sharing with people about this idea of moving past, these limitations. And so I imagine that there's someone either watching or listening to this and they're feeling really excited and ready to go. And I just imagine them kind of saying, but Michelle and John, like, but how do I do that? I'm really passionate about, helping people learn about technology, but how do I go from this place of being let go or, what have you, maybe not getting a degree in this, but I'm really passionate about it and I've done these trainings. How do I make that into a joy? How do I share this with other people? What would you recommend?
Oh, that's an awesome question. What comes to mind for me is like looking at what's out there. What's already out there? You know, and then how can you bring your voice and your experience to this place? Like
Mm,
what's so great about me speaking, is I speak about a car crash and surviving a car crash. How many other survivors of car crashes do you think are out there speaking on the same topic, telling people to do the exact same thing? There's a ton of them. But what makes me unique is I bring my experience to it, my story. I've got a good friend,
mm,
Kevin, who talks on road safety as well. He was a driver, ended up killing his friend in the car crash. He's Some people that hear his story, you know, may relate to him differently than hearing my story, And so bring your experiences and your knowledge and your flavor, who you are, to sharing that or creating that, whatever you want. And that's just what comes to mind inside of creating it. But like, yeah, so it's there, look at what's out there and then create what you want to create inside of that. And like, look at who do you want to help? Like, who do you want to make a difference for? And then look at why do you want to make a difference for them? And that
mm,
will, when you get that connected to that, that usually has you, zeroed in on like what difference you want to make. I had a friend of mine who stutters, and he's a speaker, or was getting into speaking, and he wrote a book on stuttering and being homosexual, and we had a conversation. He said, I want to get into speaking, but what advice do you have? I said, well, let's have a
mm,
conversation. Let's have a call. So I had a call with them, and I said, well, who do you want to make a difference for? Well, people that started it. But who do you want to make a difference for? And if we look at it, it always comes back to who we were in that moment that we had trauma. And that's
mm,
usually the person we're trying to help. And so I
mm,
say, use that, talk to that person. Talk to who you were. at that point in life, the where you needed the most support. So if you're looking to do an IT videos for things, maybe you have a challenge with IT, or maybe you know somebody who has a challenge in IT. Talk with that person, like have that person be your focus.
I love that. I love that. For me, what also comes to mind is the power of community. I think that, let's say you want to share about your story of an eating disorder or family challenges that you went through. I think there are communities who, once you get connected, it's really beneficial to learn about their stories, and as you were saying, to recognize that there is value in everyone's story. And something that I always kind of remind myself whenever either I'm speaking or even when I'm doing this podcast is that yes, my fingers are crossed that the entire world is listening to this, and at some point they're all going to comment, review, like, and share, etc., etc. Yes, of course, that's also what I'm thinking. And when I'm speaking, I don't know if I'm speaking to those hundreds or millions or whoever amount of people, but I know that I'm speaking to at least one person who's listening to this or who's watching this. And I think for me, what that eases is this pressure of trying to, make this message for everybody. When in reality, as you're saying, like, who is this person that was like me, that I used to be, and how can I share my message with them today? So for me, I found that's been really helpful in also getting myself connected to community and just knowing that there's value and there's power in that.
Yeah, totally. I completely agree. Yeah. Awesome. It's been a great episode today. It was really good. I love that
Yeah.
what's great is, being on the other side, when I listen back to these podcasts, like what's so great about it is we're able to do one powerful thing for the audience. You know what that is?
Hmm.
Disappear time while they're listening to this podcast.
All
We're really good at
right.
disappear, and that's the goal. When you can disappear time for your audience, you know you have them engaged. And the audience, do
Well,
you agree with me? Has time disappeared for you since you started listening to this podcast, this episode? You're probably gonna say yeah, and
they
that's what you
say,
want. That's what you want. Like that's really what you want to have happen, because when you disappear time, they're focused on what you're saying. They're not
I
like,
was
oh,
gonna
when is this
say,
podcast gonna get over?
they say time flies when you're having a good time. So I'm eager to know that we're giving people, that boost of energy and encouragement that they need. That we talk about, like we said, the
Yeah.
ups and downs and everything in between. So
Yeah,
yeah,
and whatever
thanks everyone.
stage, and as and support wise, on whatever stage you're at in the journey of healing, have it be okay. Don't make it wrong that you're not at a certain space, a certain place in your healing journey, because it's a healing journey. It's a
Mm.
continual destination. I'm 20 now. I'm almost 29 years out. Since the
Mm.
crash, and there are still things that I'm healing from, and
Hmm.
I'm almost 50 and there's still things I'm dealing with from my childhood in my healing
Yeah.
journey. So it's a journey. It's not it's wherever you're at, don't make yourself wrong. Give yourself some grace,
Mm.
some peace, and just be like, hey, take a knee for a second, just relax, and you'll be okay.
Yeah.
Get what
Be
you need.
kind. Be
Yeah, be
kind to
kind,
yourself.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah. John, this has been really exciting, and I have got the fun question ready for today. So
Okay.
typically, after we've shared a little bit about, the topic and our experiences, we always kind of want to end it on a fun note. So we often talk about heavy things and we want to bring something light to you at the end. So, John, if you're ready,
Sure.
I'm ready for you. Okay.
Okay.
So today's question is, if you could walk anywhere, where would you walk? So this could be like a place, a country, a city. If you could walk anywhere, where would you walk?
That's a great question. Um, what comes to me? What comes to mind? I don't know why it comes to mind for me. It's the Great Wall of China. That's a
Mm,
long. It'd be a
mhm,
long walk.
mhm, mhm. Well, it'd be an experience for
But
sure.
then the second, can I get a second choice?
Yeah, sure.
to go on a walk with my mom, who's no longer with us.
Oh,
Yeah.
I love that. I love that.
How about you? Same thing you. If you, what was the question?
If I could walk anywhere, where would I walk?
Okay,
Or
if
if you could
you,
walk anywhere, where would you go?
Michelle, if you could walk
Michelle could
anywhere,
walk
where
anywhere.
would you walk?
Mm. If I could walk anywhere, I would say, I don't know why two places come to mind for me, but I think either Italy, like it just would be beautiful in Italy to just walk and experience, or um, Australia. So shout out if anyone's listening from Italy or Australia. I feel like both of those would be so different yet so beautiful. And I think relaxing when I think both of these places, peaceful. So that's where you would find me.
Awesome. Love it. Again, listeners, we want to thank you for being on this journey with us. We are not paid actors. We're on this journey and this passion project of ours to really help those discover life beyond the conversation of survivor. So really, thank you for being on this journey. We look forward to, you know, I don't want to say like, share, and subscribe because you're going to do that, but really, if this podcast has made a difference for you, if this, make a difference for somebody else. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah.
Michelle, any
We'll
last
see you
words?
next time. See you soon. Can't wait.
Okay. Bye
Bye,
for
everyone.
now. Thank you for joining us today on More Than a Survivor podcast. Your support means everything to us. If you enjoyed our conversation, please subscribe, like, and leave a rating. Your feedback not only helps us reach more people, but it also makes our show even better. Got a question or a thought on today's topic? Drop us a comment. We read every single one. And if you think a friend would appreciate this episode, don't hesitate to share it. We'll see you next time. Thanks and goodbye.